Hi, this is Zak Mir with the Bulletin Board Heroes here for Friday the 24th of March on Zak's Traders Cafe. Not a great picture to end the week. Obviously, we had the rebound from oversold areas at the beginning of the week, and it's almost the opposite now. Below the 200-day moving average, 74.20, and below that on an end-of-day close basis, looking for 7,200 or the 7,200 zone, which was this week's initial support. Below that, it's 70.80, which was the October resistance and then initial November support for this market. Only really an end-of-day close back above the 200-day line, or preferably even above 7,600, really gets this market out of what looks like a rather negative picture at the moment. If you are keen to buy dips, you'd be waiting for RSI or sub-RSI 30, as we had earlier in the month, and that tends to be the rebound point for UK blue chips. Moving on to the DAX, and here not quite as painful as the FTSE, but not much better either. Here we've failed at the 50-day moving average midweek, as was suspected. Also failed at RSI 50, which is a nasty sell signal. We have one of those in the Dow, which we'll see in a minute or two. But below the 50-day line, 15,300. Looking for a retest of this week's support around 14,500, with a risk of a deeper dive towards the 200-day line at 13,800. We need an end-of-day close back above that 50-day line to get us out of a technical jail on the DAX at the moment. On to the Dow, which has been the leading indicator on the downside for a couple of months now. And here, interestingly enough, we've still got that uptrend line there from October. That's around 31,800. Below that, we've got recent support just below 31,500, and then we have the risk of initial October resistance around the 30,500 level. Need to see an end-of-day close back above yesterday's peak, 32,700, really, to unravel the bearish setup that we have at the moment. 50 and 200-day lines both falling now, so that is not a good look. And you can see that an RSI 50 failure and a 50-day moving average failure was the signal that brought this market down earlier in the month. On to Bitcoin, where we're always hoping for a better picture than what we're seeing at the indices. But here, still in this flag, really in a range between 26,700 and 29,000. Want an end-of-day close, obviously, but through the top of that range to take us up to 32,000. If we fail at 26,700, then there's a risk of a test of around 25,000, which is or was post-August resistance. But market doing probably as well as can be expected, given that we went into oversold territory. We're backed by the way that both the 50 and 200-day moving averages are still rising, which is a pretty good look, about as good a look as you can get in terms of the moving average configuration. On to the small caps, and obviously not that many to write home about at the moment, but Angus has been a sort of an improving situation over the last few weeks. We had a sideways shuffle along the 50-day moving average, the blue line there. That's around 1.35 pence, and now it looks as though we'll get an end-of-day close not only above the 200-day moving average, which is now rising. That's a good sign at 1.6 pence, but also an end-of-day close above the initial March resistance at 1.6 pence. Above 1.6, we're looking for a pretty quick move towards 2 pence, maybe in the first half or by the first half of next month. The bullish setup valid while we hold above that 50-day line. On to Axel, which is the Epico, but on to Arrow, which is the stock. And here a bit of buying support there from a stake builder, which has helped sort of finesse that bear trap that we had below 15 pence in the last week. The view now is that we're in a range between 15 pence and hopefully back up to 21 or 22 pence over the next month or so. If you're cautious, you wait for an end-of-day close above the 200-day line around 17.5 pence as the momentum trigger. Onto a stock which has certainly captured the imagination of small-cap traders over the recent past, BSF Enterprise with its pork chop, I believe. Here we've got rising trend channel from back in July, and top of the channel they're heading towards 30 pence. We might see that as soon as the end of next month if we can maintain support at or above the now rising 50-day moving average at 17.5 pence. In fact, we've got both the 50 and 200-day lines both rising at the moment. We've had the share price or the RSI bounce off the neutral 50 level as well, which tends to be a decent bullish continuation signal. And looking for 30 pence, as I said, over the near term while we're above that 50-day line. On to Genedrive, which has probably got more coverage than it deserves, but as it's one of the few constructive situations around, it's got to be in here in the bulletin board heroes. Here we bounced off old resistance, that old resistance from back in January at 32 pence. We did that this week, and looking for a retest of the March peak at 48.5, and then after that, maybe by the end of next month, up to as high as 60 pence at that December 2021 resistance line projection. But everything here really relying on the shares remaining above 32 pence and continuing to bounce off that uptrend line in the RSI window as well, which it's done on several occasions. The more occasions it does that, the stronger the pattern is technically. On to Hemogenyx, which had an announcement yesterday, which hopefully one or two people understood. Here we've had a trend line break there from back in January, so breaking the 2 pence area above 2 pence, at least looking for the return to the 50-day moving average area around 2.5 pence over the next week or two. The reason for inclusion today is that we've had a lower low yesterday versus the initial March support, but a higher RSI trace, so that bullish divergence gives us a bit of comfort that there could be a little rebound in Hemogenyx. On to Kefi, which has been consolidating rather frustratingly in a range roughly between 0.7 and 0.85. Looks as though we are going to break out of that range, and with a rising 50-day line and in fact a rising 200-day line, shouldn't be too much of a problem to get up to a penny, hopefully as soon as the next 2 to 3 weeks, and certainly by the end of next month. So after the consolidation that we've had for the last 3 or 4 months, it looks like Kefi's finally ready to deliver for the bulls. One of the other stocks which has been a very reliable play over the recent past is Premier African. I think I covered it yesterday as well. We've had a recent trendline break there, February trendline break around 0.7, and above that we're looking for as high as 0.84 over the near term. Might even see that by the end of next week if the stock plays its cards right. If you're a fan of the shares and you're looking for perhaps where they'll go after 0.85, then we're looking at something like the line of resistance I've just drawn now, which is heading towards a penny, hopefully by the end of next month as a best case scenario. But the real sizzle here being what's it sort of like almost 4 bounces of the RSI at or above neutral 50, so that is a pretty strong continuation signal for the shares, especially while they're above 0.7. On to Quadrise, and here you can see that we've had one of those 50-day moving average shuffles, so sideways action either side of that. Looks like we're just breaking through the 200-day moving average around 1.62 pence, and above that looking for a return at least to 2 pence by the end of next month, especially if the 50-day line starts to curl up. We've already had multiple bounces off neutral 50 as well, at least 3 of them, and that is a decent continuation or recovery signal. One of the probably the best RNS of the day came from Warpaint. Seems to be their cosmetics seems to be selling like hotcakes, if that's not mixing too many metaphors. Here we've broken a line of resistance from August or September 2021, and above that line around 192, looking for £2.60 at the top of the rising trend channel from the early part of 2021. Both the 50 and 200-day moving averages rising, and so we are expecting decent follow-through for the shares after that bounce off the 50-day line and RSI 50 earlier this month. That's it for me today. More updates over the weekend.